Welcome to Music She Missed, the podcast where I get my best friend caught up on some of the most popular songs and artists that impact our lives. I'm Alison.
Hi, I'm Rachel and I missed all the music.
Welcome to Season 2.
Yay for Season 2!
The purpose of this show is to educate you, Rachel, about all the music that you somehow have never heard.
I don't know how, but I just have missed it in my childhood, in my life, in my world.
It's right. And we did spend Season 1 getting you caught up on some of the biggest names in American pop and rock music history.
Mm-hmm.
But we have lots more lined up in Season 2 that's going to give you a better, broader perspective of popular music. So
exciting.
I'm really looking forward to it.
I am too.
So every week before we reveal the artist that you're going to be listening to this week, I always ask you a question that's tangentially related to music in some way.
Yes.
To get you kind of primed and thinking about what we're going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So my question for you today is, what was the first CD you ever got?
Ooh. Feel like it was in the late 90s.
Okay. The late 90s was your first CD?
I think it was like 98.
That's really late for a first CD, just so you know.
I was born in the 80s, so
Yeah,
we're
me
not going to
too.
talk about our real ages.
We were born in the same year.
But yeah,
So what is it? What is it?
I remember asking my parents if I could buy the CD. We were in the store, and it was Shania Twain. And my dad was scanning through, because, you know, my dad was just making sure that I wasn't going to pick.
It's not explicit.
Yeah. And so he was like, Shania Twain. And he's going through all the song titles. And one of them is, Man, I Feel Like a Woman. And he's like...
That's like her most famous song, I think.
Yes. And he was like, what is this song about? And this is before we had iPhones, so we couldn't like pull up the lyrics or anything.
But he let you buy it anyway.
No. We had to go to a store clerk and ask them to open up the CD.
So you could read the lyrics.
And so my dad could read the lyrics in the pamphlet. He's like, well, the store clerk was like, you're going to have to buy it. He's like, well, we'll have to buy it, but you might not be able to keep it, Rachel. At least this is my memory of it. My parents might like roll their eyes and like, Rachel, that is not how it happened or whatever. But I think that's what happened.
That seems like that's how that could have happened. Did you, first of all, what was the album? Do you know the title?
Shania Twain. It's the one that had Man, I Feel Like a Woman. I don't know her music.
Did you listen to it a lot? Did you like that CD?
I know a couple of the lyrics out of that song and a bunch of other ones, but I wouldn't say I know the whole entire song. So I would say...
You listened to it for a little while.
But I still own it. I still have it upstairs in my closet with all my other kitty stuff.
That's very interesting.
Because I kind of save a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell me about your first CD? It was probably like when you were 2 or something.
Well, no, they didn't have CDs when we were 2. But it was in 1994 for Christmas. My parents got me a CD player, and my brother got me some CDs. And I'm going to tell you what those CDs are after the big reveal, because it will spoil the big reveal.
Oh, okay.
Are you ready?
I am.
All right, let's do the drum roll. It's the Beatles.
I knew we were going to do the Beatles. I knew it.
You did.
Well, I knew that the Beatles are very close and dear to your heart because I hosted a party for your engagement or... bridal.
Like a wedding shower?
Yeah, wedding shower, and you wanted a Beatles themes, and so I had to listen to something to be able to do something.
I don't think you listened to anything. I think you went on Pinterest and was like, oh, yellow submarine sandwiches.
That's it.
Anyway, yeah, so we're actually going to do the Beatles in a 2-part episode.
Really?
Yes.
They have that much?
Yes, they have that much. But
and you want to teach that much?
I do, but they also have 2 really defining time periods where it's almost like listening to 2 different bands. So you're going to rate the Beatles separately. You're going to rate them twice. So we're going to start this week with their very first, we're going chronological here. So we're going to start with their very first hits and albums.
Okay.
And we're going to go through the time when they stopped touring. So that's going to be the time period for this episode. But I'd like to know, apart from, say, yellow submarine sandwiches for my shower, what do you already know about the Beatles? Let's see what your familiarity is.
I remember in 7th grade, we had a music teacher that really liked, I guess, that time era from the Beatles.
And what time do you think that is?
70s?
That's not correct.
60s? 50s?
1960s. 1960s. Okay.
And we had to sing, I think, Hey Jude.
Okay.
Why? Because I think there's not many lyrics to it, and he could get his 7th grade students to memorize them all.
It's mostly na 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 na.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that song, and that's merely because I've heard it before. And yeah.
Is that the only Beatles song you can name?
No, Yellow Submarine.
Okay.
Hey Jude.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably more, maybe.
That's it. Those are the only two that come to your head. I have to warn you that neither of those are on this playlist. So.
Oh. That one, beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Beautiful.
Oh, Beautiful Boy.
Yes.
Yeah, that is not. That's by a Beatle, but
is that a Beatles song?
No, that was written just by John Lennon. It's a John Lennon song.
So it just, but isn't he part of the Beatles?
Yeah, but it's not a Beatles song. It came out.
Oh, so
after.
It wasn't like the other band members were singing.
No. Yeah, no. The other. Can you name the other 3 Beatles? By the way, let's just clarify that.
I had to work on this for your party. I think it was John Lennon.
Okay.
Ringo Starr with 2 R's.
Yeah.
Woohoo. Oka, no. She wasn't in there.
What?
Okinawa? No, that's
Okinawa.
Japan.
Yoko Ono?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
Japan.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yoko Ono is not a Beatle.
No, but she was part of the Beatles following group.
Okay.
John Lennon,
Yeah, you
Ringo
said that
Starr.
one.
I know I'm repeating myself because I don't remember the other ones.
Come on.
I
My favorite one. We're not going to be friends anymore in about...
No, Paul McCartney.
Okay.
Paul McCartney.
Yeah. And the last one, I'll just give it to you, so you don't have to wait in suspense, is George Harrison.
George Harrison. Yeah, I wouldn't have gotten that one.
That's
Sorry.
okay. That's all right. So you know the names of some of the Beatles. You can name a couple songs. Do you know anything else? Maybe where they're from, why they were famous?
They're from UK.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been there to London and was Abbey Road. Is that a song?
It's not a song. It's an album, and it's also a recording studio.
Oh, okay.
Where they record.
So I've crossed that street before.
Cool. Me too. That's also not in this playlist.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
How do I not?
I don't know.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. UK. 4 guys. 1 got shot, or was he killed, murdered?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
With a gun, not like a knife or anything.
Right.
Okay.
Do you know which one?
Not Paul, because you went to his concert.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
That was John Lennon.
You're right. So you're not clueless about the Beatles, but I think that's mainly because you were my roommate.
Yeah, and you have a couple posters.
We're sitting in a room right now with Beatles stuff like in the room.
Yeah, there's a rainbow with a yellow submarine.
There's a yellow submarine in this room.
Once upon a time.
Or maybe twice.
I can't read it all the way over here.
All right.
It's a big room.
So I'm going to give you some early Beatles songs. And you can say, yes, you've heard of it, or pass.
Okay. Fair.
I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Oh, I know that song.
Okay.
I like that one. Yes.
She Loves You.
It's a half pass. I think I know, but I'm not sure.
Okay. A Hard Day's Night.
Pass.
Really?
Well.
Okay. That's sorry.
I'll
try to suppress my surprise. And keep
Are you
going.
surprised I missed the music?
No, I shouldn't be. Yesterday.
Tomorrow. Yesterday.
Is that a pass?
Yeah, it's a pass.
It's a pass.
Pass.
Okay. I'm trying not to cry. Ticket to Ride.
Oh, I like that game. So I guess pass.
Okay, still pass because you didn't know it was a song.
Is that where they got the song, the game name? Probably.
You mean the game with the trains, like the board game? It seems unrelated to me.
Oh, okay.
Last
We'll have to
one
ask
for
the
early
creator.
Beatles, we'll do Eleanor Rigby.
I do know that song. I like that song.
Okay, that's a positive way to end.
Yes, I like that song. I would not be able to sing it, but I do know that is a Beatles song, and I do know that I like that song. So that's about it.
Okay. Well, let's rate your familiarity with the Beatles. 1 being you've never heard of them before, and 10 being you love them as much as I do.
Oh, well, definitely not 10, because let's be honest, I don't think I'm going to ever be able to attain a 10 in my life.
Yeah.
It's so hard because I don't know if some of that stuff is real. That I really know that. Like Eleanor Rigby, like I know the song name, I know that I like them, but I can't sing it. So
just a base number.
3. Okay.
I think
3.
3 is good. Because it's a little bit of familiarity with who they are and a little bit of familiarity with their music, but not enough. Because you can name a couple songs off the bat. They're just not the ones for this part 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get to the homework.
Well, let's talk about it. What's your homework?
It's about 1 hour of listening to Spotify playlists that you have created.
Which can be found at Spotify, /user/music she missed.
Join me.
Mm-hmm. And then we'll come back together next week and we'll talk about the Beatles and their history, and you will have, hopefully, an understanding of why I like them so much.
Well, I'm excited about this upcoming week.
Rachel, I'll see you in a week, and audience, we'll be back with you in just a moment. Welcome back. Rachel, you spent the last week listening to my favorite band, the Beatles.
I know I did.
How was it?
I
don't like where this is going.
No. I had a really good week.
Okay.
But I had some high expectations because I knew it was your favorite. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of hoping that some more songs that I would have been able to recognize. And I was disappointed that I didn't recognize a bunch.
Well, that's not the Beatles' fault. That's your fault.
Oh, I know that. That's I know.
Okay.
But it was like 2 days after like day 2 in the week, and I was like text messaging you. I was like, am I listening to the right band or the playlist or the right whatever? Because I just was so shocked at myself.
Well, remember that you're only listening to certain selections of half of the Beatles' music, because this particular list that I gave you only covers 3 years of the Beatles' recordings.
Yeah.
From 1963 to 1966. That's it. So a lot of Beatles songs that I know that you'll hear next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I should feel better about myself next week, because this week I was kind of disappointed in myself. Right. So it's not that the week went bad or anything. It was just that I was kind of having high expectations because I knew you and I knew you loved it, and I figured that I would do better this week, and I didn't.
But the point is not about you like already knowing it when you come in. That's the whole point of the show, is that you don't know any of this. So you shouldn't be disappointed in yourself. You should be excited that you heard songs that you knew, and you had some new songs that you liked too. So, but before we get into what songs you liked and didn't like, why don't we start with talking about the history of the band?
Cool. I think I would like to understand, is it the Beatles, how do you call them? Because I've heard both of them, but I'm confused.
So you would say the Beatles, unless you were replacing the with an A. For example, are you a Beatles fan? Is an appropriate way to ask that question.
But when they're referred like on records or like books or reference, it's always the Beatles.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yep. I'm just making sure.
Okay.
And then another thing is Beatles, animals, the spelling. Explain to me about Beatles versus Beetles. Like what? Do they like the animal, the Beatles?
Well, yeah. So let's talk about the origin of the name. So the Beatles had several different names in the early years, like many bands we've discussed. This is not unusual. And when the Beatles were talking about names, one of the bands that they liked at the time was Buddy Holly and the Crickets. So they liked that kind of bug concept. But the Beatles, when you
Really?
but when you spell it with an A, you get this kind of pun on beat, like the beat or beat music or beat culture.
Yeah.
And John Lennon especially was really into puns. So for them, it was like a little bit of an homage to another band that they liked, and also like a little play on words.
Something's personal to them.
Exactly.
Huh.
Now later, there are other stories about how they got their name. I think that is the most logical one.
Okay.
John, who's a jokester, later wrote a comical article where he said that the name came to him in a vision. A man appeared on a flaming pie and said unto them, "From this day you are Beatles with an A." And so we are, or something like that.
Yeah, I would go with the first story.
Right, he's like a joke. But there are many stories circulating, but that would be the main one.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's 4 of them.
Correct.
And they met not in childhood, did they? Well,
yeah, they actually did, but it depends on who
Really?
you're talking about, because different members joined at different times. So John had another band called the Quarrymen, and he had a mutual friend that introduced him to Paul. And so John and Paul, when they were this is 1957, so they were 15, 16 years old.
so it's like how we met with a mutual friend.
Yeah, except not in Liverpool in 1957. So they met at a festival, and John and Paul were both impressed with each other's musical talents. And Paul was friends with George, who was a little bit younger than them. He was only 14 when he joined the band, but he had such good guitar skills that they couldn't ignore him.
Really?
So he was invited to join the band. And there were 2 other members. There were a
total of 5 at first?
There was the original bassist. His name was Stu, but he was terrible. They would have him face away from the audience so no one could see he was playing the wrong notes. And then and then they had a different drummer as well named Pete Best. So they all went on tour together in Germany when they were really young. And they got lots of...
And he was 14.
No, a couple years later, as they're forming, right? So they go to Germany and they tour. Stu decided to stay in Germany, so Paul ended up taking the bass.
He just left the group.
Yeah, he wasn't very good anyway. He was more of an artist. And then the Beatles started, trying to find recording deals and that kind of stuff. And they did sign one, but the producer didn't like Pete Best, the drummer. And so the Beatles asked him to leave. And they brought in Ringo, who they had met in Germany when Ringo was playing with a different band. And so that's how we got the 4 that we know today as the Beatles.
So Ringo's not British.
No, he is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were all British bands touring down there in Hamburg.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I didn't know if he was just German with a bunch of...
No. They're all born in Liverpool. Very similar backgrounds.
That's really cool. So, you were saying that they were touring in Germany. So was that after they did their first production and things like that?
No, at that point they were pretty much doing live stuff. There are still some recordings, of their very earliest recordings that they did as teens. Yeah, which you can hear on the Beatles anthology. So we have some demos and some auditions, but their first actual recording was in 1962.
Okay, tell me a little bit more.
Well, that song's Love Me Do, and that wasn't on your playlist because you can't put every big Beatles song in an hour. That was their first single in the UK.
Really? Mm-hmm. Huh. And so what made that one so special for them to be... Because I feel like...
It wasn't that special. It didn't go to number 1. It was just a song that they wrote.
As them 4.
They're... as the songwriters, 4. Not doing covers. Yeah, their own kind of creative. And it went to number 17 or something.
Well,
but
still, that's better than what I can do.
Yeah, maybe it went to 4 in the UK. Okay. But they continued to hone their songwriting ability. And then Please Please Me was their first number 1 hit in the UK. They were big in the UK first. It took a little while for them to catch on in the US. So they had lots and lots of number 1 hits in the UK before they even came to the US.
Okay.
Their first hit in the US was I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Oh, I like that song.
Yeah, and we were talking off air about the Ed Sullivan Show and their performance
on
that. And that's kind of what springboards them into
Stardom and Crazy.
Stardom in the U.S. and British Invasion and Beatlemania.
Because there was this one song that I was listening to on the playlist that you created, and you just hear the girls scream like they had, like I heard, like some of them were crying. I think.
Yeah. So that song, I purposefully chose the live version of "She Loves You," so you could get a little bit of the screaming Beatlemania in on that song.
Oh my gosh. And you could hear that it's vast majority all girls. It's not guys screaming.
Well,
there were probably some guys, but there were just a lot of girls.
Yeah. Well, the Beatles are cute. And I can tell you, as someone who's seen Paul McCartney in concert 6 times, that there's plenty of screaming even now. And crying.
I'm just very keen on the shorter haircuts. And they had long hair.
Yeah, that was actually very rebellious at the time. Mm-hmm. Lots of jokes about their hair and stuff.
So,
what else do you want to know?
So, tell me a little bit about the sound. I could tell their British accent was a little bit more profound compared to some other British bands that we've listened to. And why is that? Like, why is that, and why are they special?
Well, those are 2 totally different questions to me. So about the accent, so they're not from London, they're from Liverpool, so they do have a different British accent. I don't think it's that pronounced in their singing at all. So I'm kind of surprised that you pick up on that.
I think it is pretty pronounced compared to some of the other stuff that we've listened to.
Okay.
Like, especially there's that one track that you had me listen to that had, I don't know who was talking. Was it John? Was it Paul McCartney? Because he was talking to the girls.
And, in the live recording.
Yeah, in the live recording.
Okay,
and how he's like, we're going to only do one more song. And I was just like...
Well, when they're talking, they have Liverpudlian accents.
Yeah, but even some of the other artists that we've listened to, I'm just like, even when they're talking, they're not as hard of a... And I can hear it in their music too, so...
Well, I mean, it's
their
where
style.
They're from.
Were they trying?
No, it's just they are...
Okay.
They're Liverpudlian. That's their accent.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's a way to avoid it. Some songs it's more pronounced than others, but I don't think that it's that obvious. But let's go to your second question, which is much more important.
So my second question was, how are they special?
Okay.
Let's talk about that.
Well, I'm going to be really honest. So I don't know if the early Beatles are really, quote, that special, because a lot of what they were imitating and what they were drawing on was 1950s American blues, American rock and roll, songs like Twist and Shout that you liked. They're covers of their favorite bands. In fact, a lot of their early songs...
Wait, he didn't write that?
No. Oh. It's a cover. And a lot of their early songs are covers because that was the music that they grew up loving. They grew up loving Buddy Holly and Elvis and like blues musicians.
I know who Elvis is.
Yeah, good. So that's who they were into. So I think that what they were doing was basically like a British take on the American music.
Okay.
But in their early time, lots of other bands came out with a similar sound. Mm-hmm. So early on, I don't think if the Beatles had stopped recording in 1965 or 1966, nobody would go, oh, they're the best. It would just be like a boy band. I think that later, as their songwriting and their experimentation develops, is when they are really differentiating themselves as musicians.
This makes me look forward to next week.
Well, I'm glad. I hope you like next week, but it is a little bit trippier. So maybe not.
Then maybe I need to tell you a little bit about the song I didn't like.
Okay, let's talk about it. Which song did you not like?
I didn't like Tomorrow Never Knows.
So I really like that song.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Can we still be friends?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So
there are 250 Beatles songs. If you don't like one, it's okay.
So first off, I've never heard that song before, ever.
That is impossible because I know you watch Mad Men, and it was in a Mad Men episode, and it definitely drew my attention. It's in the episode where Megan, Don Draper's wife, like gives him a Beatles record to try to turn him on to the cool, trippy stuff that's happening in her generation, and he's like he's too old. Like he's not.
Maybe
into
I'm
it.
too old and I'm not into it. So I didn't like it. It sounded weird.
It is weird.
The lyrics were they on drugs when they did this song?
So yes, but the lyrics
that's why.
the lyrics are influenced by the Tibetan Book of the Dead. So like John had found Timothy Leary's psychedelic interpretation of the Tibetan Book of the Dead and was like, "Oh, turn off your mind, relax, and float downstream." And went like, that's a cool lyric or whatever, and wrote the song. So definitely based on that.
Yeah.
You picked up on it. It's not subtle. But I put this song on this playlist for you because it has some key components.
Okay, tell me more.
So first of all, during 1965, 1966, the Beatles started to get really into Indian music. That's why that song only has one chord, because a lot of Indian songs just stay like in one key and kind of drone. So this is just like the C chord over and over and over again. And you can also hear the sitar on Norwegian Wood too. So
Yeah, I was really debating back and forth if I was going to put that one on the list of the songs I didn't like.
Okay.
But I just...
that song can grow on you. Maybe this one's too weird. Norwegian Wood is otherwise a pop song that happens to have a sitar in it.
Yes, I would say that it is still a pop song, while this one is very trippy.
Yeah, so that's part of it, was their interest in Indian music. There are songs that I'm not going to make you listen to, which are actually full on, like Ravi Shankar, the famous Indian musician, comes in and plays whole pieces. Yeah, we can if you want, but so that's part of it. They also did a lot using tape loops, playing guitar, and then playing it backwards, slowing it down, speeding it up.
Is that
like,
kind of a new thing for them?
Oh,
at that age?
yeah, definitely. Ooh. And that kind of seagull sound that you hear,
in
the song, that's just a guitar that they've like altered and changed. Yeah.
And so not a lot of bands did that, but they did.
Yeah, well, it was a new thing in this time. I'm sure other bands were doing it, but the Beatles were doing it too. They were experimenting with playing stuff backwards and feedback and kinds of things that you can't...
being artistic.
Right. Now, digitally you can do whatever you want. The Beatles had to do it all in analog on tape. So really creative process. And the song is really just about meditation. And George Harrison said about John, who wrote the lyrics to the song, that he didn't really think John knew what the song was about anyway. Because it's this waking, sleeping, dreaming kind of transcendent meditation. And George didn't think that John
was there yet.
Yeah, maybe.
You aren't at my level.
George was really, really into the Indian stuff. So he was the main force for that sound.
Is he Norwegian? Is that why he...
Norwegian?
Well, you said Norwegian Wood song. Is he behind that one too?
He was the one that wanted to put the sitar in it, yeah.
I wonder if he's Norwegian.
Nope, he is definitely British.
Oh, yeah, I know. You can still have... No, never mind. Moving on.
Let's talk about the songs that you did like.
Okay. So, I really liked Twist and Shout.
Okay.
That is my number one song of the Beatles because I love the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Okay, that's a fun movie.
I do like that movie.
And in that movie, there's a scene with like a parade.
Yes.
And Ferris is singing Twist and Shout.
Twist and Shout. So, I remember for the longest time, I didn't know the song was a Beatles song.
Yeah.
And I would say, I learned within the past 5 or 10 years that it was a Beatles song. Before I heard it for the first time when I watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off, I didn't know that it was a Beatles song. I just thought it was some song.
Okay.
So, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Did the actor who played Ferris Bueller, Matthew Broderick, did he actually sing that and he make himself sound like the Beatles?
No.
Or did he lip sync that?
He's lip syncing it. That's John Lennon's voice for sure.
I was just making sure. I was like, wow, Matthew Broderick, he really sounds like that.
He sounds a lot like this dead British guy.
I didn't know.
Nope. All right. So what are some of the other ones you liked?
Well, before we go on to the next song, I want to mention I was listening to the song with my daughter. And she recognized the song.
Oh, good.
She's like, this is Elmo's song.
Elmo. Like
and I
Sesame
guess,
Street?
Yeah, I guess they did a Beatles Sesame Street episode and she recognized it and I was pretty proud of her.
Good for them. Start them young.
Yay. So another song I really liked was Michelle.
That's a very pretty song.
It is. I like the French in the song. But me knowing a few languages and things like that, the French wasn't pronounce right and stuff.
I would disagree with you. So Paul, that's actually one of the first songs that Paul ever wrote. He wrote it as a teenager to try to attract girls. And he would go to parties and have this little like fake French accent and try to like attract girls that way. But I also studied French.
Well, yeah, I believe your mom's a French teacher, right?
She is. I don't think that it is. It's first of all, it's not bad French.
No, I wouldn't say it's bad French, but I wouldn't say he's not fluent in it.
No, he had someone who was fluent in French teach him how to say that phrase. However, sont des mots qui vont très bien ensemble is exactly what he says, and that's...
Yeah, but I could hear a little bit off of it. That's all.
Because he's not French.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So, I caught on to it.
You wouldn't have been deceived by Paul at a party. You would have known that he was really just some British guy.
Some British guy.
Okay. What are some other ones you liked?
Another song I really want to talk about is I Want to Hold Your Hand. Mm-hmm. I really like that one. I know, as I was reading the lyrics, it's very simple.
Yes.
And I think I like that because it was simple.
A lot of their early songs are kind of written, to you, the girl, I love you, like very kind of just to their fans.
Mm-hmm. And it was just a very sweet love song. I thought that was a really fun song. I like the beat, I like the lyrics, and so...
That's a perfect John Paul, like, cohesive writing. That's them together.
Can't Buy Me Love is another song. Mm-hmm. I like that one. And I also like the Patrick Dempsey movie, Can't Buy Me Love.
Okay.
Again, I'm more into movies than more into music.
Well, since you're into movies, Can't Buy Me Love is a great scene in the first Beatles movie, which is A Hard Day's Night. And I will put, if I can find the video, if it's possible to find.
I bet it's somewhere.
Well, the Beatles are very protective of their rights, so it's hard to find like the original things like just on YouTube. But I'll see if I can find just that clip. I have the movie if you want to borrow it. Of them kind of running around and jumping and just being silly with that song.
And how old were they when they did that movie?
1964. So they would have been like 20.
Oh. Okay.
22. Depending, because the Beatles are different ages. So.
Yeah. Cool. So I really want to talk about one song, though.
Okay, which one?
In My Life.
Okay.
So...
That's a great track from Rubber Soul.
I cried when I heard that song.
Why?
I cried in a good way, though. Not a bad way because I didn't like it. I cried in a good way because I realized what it was. So my grandfather died earlier this year, and my mom and I were working on this video kind of slideshow picture-ish, and so she would send me the info and I would do the project. So she sent me the songs, the videos,
the
pictures,
yeah,
and one of the songs is In My Life, but it wasn't the Beatles singing it. It was someone else doing the cover. I think it was a female version or someone like that. So when I first heard it, for the first 3-4 seconds, I didn't recognize it. But as the lyrics started going, I didn't realize that it was written by the Beatles, and it is actually the reason probably why it was in the video collection of all the music that my mom picked out. It was because it was my grandfather's favorite song.
Aww.
And so even though he has passed on like a year now, the Beatles are even teaching me about my own life, and I like that.
That's so sweet.
I know. I was really moved. It was a very personal thing, and so that was really cool, and I really, really love my grandfather.
That's a really sweet story, and I'm glad that one of the songs on this playlist spoke to you or drew up an emotion for you that, was
personal,
positive, I hope.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Positive. I'm very blessed to have very loving grandparents. Both my sides, all my grandparents are very wonderful. And so for me to remember such a wonderful man as him.
And that song written by John was about his childhood and him remembering growing up. Something that we didn't talk about earlier, but we certainly could, is that both John and Paul lost their mothers at young ages. Yeah, Paul's mother died of breast cancer and John's was hit by a car. And so, like, I think that even though he was pretty young writing this song, he has all of these memories. Some have gone, some remain. You know, he had this wealth of life experience that he could draw from that I think speaks universally to people. I think that song, everybody can connect with what John says in that song, because it's the things of life and the people and places in our lives that are important to us and that mean something to us.
Yeah, it was a very beautifully well-written song. I love the music of it, I love the lyrics of it, and I love how it was personal to me.
That's great. Why don't we take this moment for you to rate this half of the Beatles catalog and your experience with it?
Well, with how much that one specific song really affected me personally, it's kind of hard not to go into the higher numbers, but also I could tell that Tomorrow Never Knows, I really didn't like that one. And so I don't want to add too many points because I know that there is one at least song.
Well, why don't we drop the highest and the lowest one and just go for the bulk of most of their music that you heard this week, if you generally enjoyed it or not?
I would say it's an 8, 7, 8. 8.
A strong 8.
It is a strong 8.
Okay. Well, that's pretty great. And, you know, it was really hard for me to make this playlist because I'm such a fan that I want you to know every song. And unfortunately, a lot of the songs that I think you should know educationally aren't always the ones that I want you to know that I love. So I hope that...
You said there was 250 total, or 250 from this half?
No, 250 total. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to know all the songs,
it's going to take a while, but we're going to get there. All right. So, Rachel, we already know what next week holds, which is more Beatles.
Yay!
But we encourage you, our audience, to chat with us about your favorite Beatles song or what you think Rachel should know on Facebook and Twitter.
And don't forget to rate us on iTunes.
Subscribe.
Yay!
And, of course, follow all of our playlists on Spotify.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks so much, and see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.